What is up, conscious monkeys? Welcome back to another episode of Traveling to Consciousness. As always, I'm your host, Clayton Q. Terry, and I'm really loving this idea of doing intros before we actually put the podcast on. So we're going to keep this coming. Just finished recording the Mike Murphy episode, and it's a fascinating one. He's a cool dude. He had an interesting life for sure. We don't dive too much into his life. This was actually a very fascinating podcast in that regard, where we tended to focus a little bit more on the structures at B, whether it was, I know it kind of started off with Amazon and ways that we felt like they could be doing more for the community, but trying to even stay away from specific name brands and even just looking at it at a more esoteric, a more metaphysical level of like, what can we do? How are we able to take the tools that we have at Bay, the fact that we need or we would desire everything like instantaneously on the snap of the dime. Snap of the dime is not the phrase, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Wanting things instantaneously, how we desire things convenient, things cheap, and how we can actually work through that. So it's a super dope, interesting podcast. We talk about a lot of those more meta things as opposed to really diving into the spiritual esoteric, which is interesting because I've always kind of wanted to pull this out a little bit more. I've kind of wanted to start applying the spiritual knowledge to maybe more metaphysical structures now that they're not metaphysical, but like concrete structures that we have in the world today. So I think we really found that groove in this podcast as well. It was super dope talking to Mike. I felt like the podcast went great. It's a little bit short of a podcast, but honestly, it's about quality, not quantity. And yeah, I'm interested to hear what you guys think of it. Please let me know what you think. I felt like it went well. I felt like there was a lot covered and in a concise and condensed way. So let me know what you guys think. I'm interested to hear. And yeah, with that being said, here's episode 081 with Mike Murphy.
Traveling to Consciousness, exploring spiritual journeys to find answers in uncertainty.
So we got Mike Murphy. What's up, man? How are we doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. And I already could tell this is going to be a dope podcast because when we were talking in the green room, you started telling me about how you were doing 10 million different projects, which is something that I've always found fascinating from my point of view. Because first of all, for anyone who's seen the profile pictures, a little bit of an age gap here, which is beautiful. And I'm honestly super grateful because I know that there's a tremendous wisdom that comes from people who are older than you. And something that I've always seen a lot with, especially a lot of super successful people, first names that are coming to mind are like the Jordan Peterson, where he has his hand in almost, or even like Elon Musk, where they have their hands in what feels like a million different projects. And, you know, so whenever it's coming to you and we're talking about a million different projects, the way that this relates back to my life is trying to figure out how to schedule my life, because there's a piece of me that's like, oh, I don't want to schedule too much. And then now I'm losing that freedom that I have with starting this podcast, my side business. But now I'm starting to get into that point of like, oh, I need to schedule because things are starting to ramp up. So I'm really curious, like, what does scheduling mean to you? How does setting your schedule work? How do we even unpack this thing?
Well, you couldn't ask a crazier question for me. Let me speak to the age thing first of all. I live in most of the time in Medellin, Colombia, right? And so we were meeting someone yesterday at a coffee shop like 9 a.m. to interview her and take her to our retreat center. And so before that person got there, my wife and I were just sitting there having a cup of coffee talking. And there's a gringo, Americans at the table next to us. And so I start talking to him, and we're in South America. And he goes, and then my wife starts talking, who's an attorney. And he goes, oh, is that your dad? Or he goes, somehow she says to my wife, oh, is that your dad? And so
Oh,
my wife is rather young and actually younger than 3 of my 4 kids. So, but we don't get a lot of that, but it was funny that you just brought that up. So anyways, back to scheduling. Okay. So, that's a big issue for me, frankly. I'm 95% right brain. I used to be more left brain. I had an experience in my life that took most of my left brain away. So I'm forcing myself to use, to put everything down in this schedule. I also have a really good team. I'm fortunate in that regard. And so they're very, very conscious of my schedule because I don't have to tell you, I mean, there's nothing worse than being double booked. Let's say you're supposed to be interviewing me and you're supposed to be a guest over there. I mean, that's the worst feeling in the world,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
So if we're not on top of our game, we run into those little problems and which aren't very fun. So I would say this. I've always been the kind of person that I'm very super passionate. I have a lot of passion projects and and I always take on more than I can chew, frankly. I mean, I've done this most of my life. Probably why I'm sitting here with some health issues like a heart that's out of rhythm and stuff like that. But it's just the way I am. It's the way I'm wired and you learn to operate and deal with it. But, I like your approach is not taking on too much, keeping life in balance and having time to breathe is super important as well.
So do you feel like so if you're saying that you feel like you have too much, like, like you have your hand in too many things, I assume you're passionate about all of them. Does it ever cross your mind that if you would step back from one or two of them, then you could put more energy into the other ones? What is your mindset kind of ever been like around that type of idea?
So it's funny because we just did a webinar here this morning at my house, and one of the big topics was balance, right? And how I met this guy in 1982, taught me the importance of balance, and how I found a book with how to balance wheel. So I was talking about all this stuff, right? And so balance is super important. My thing is that all my projects are pretty much aligned, so they make sense. And by the way, I mean, you know, I could go 3 months with doing nothing but just having fun and playing golf and travel too, So I have that skill available as well. But when I embrace a project, the way I manifest things is I speak them into existence. And so by doing that, I create an enormous amount of leverage to forces myself to get things done. Right. So
Mm.
is there an easier way to do it? Perhaps it's just, I'm 66 years old. I've been doing this my whole life this way. And so I can't see it changing. Um, I'm also smart enough to realize when I need to pull back, breathe, take some time, take some quiet time and what have you. So, I'm super happy. And so that's really the only way you can really measure things, right? So even though I got all this stuff to do and I feel like it's always pulling at me, I'm super happy to be doing it. And I'm super excited to get it all completed and then see how it works. And then I'll start taking some more time for myself and enjoying life more.
And then you iterate and I assume kind of go on things from there. But
Yeah.
I think you couldn't understate what you said there enough, right, about being happy. Because from my experience, it's like a huge thing that seems like it's a misfiring in our culture or in our minds about, you have to have X million dollars, you got to have, all of these different things, a house, a family. And at the end of the day, how do if you could just be sitting in a cave doing nothing, if you're the happiest guy in the world, then
Exactly.
arguably you're succeeding.
Exactly. Now, with that said, okay, because I also believe this, and this is part of what drives me, is that I believe that we chose to take on this physical existence. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience, and we came here with a purpose, and we are creators. The problem with the world today, as I see it, especially media and government and whoever runs those two things, the elite, uh, they,
The
they,
three organizations.
yeah, there you go. And so, but what they want is a mindset where we are victims. We're all victims. Reparations and victims, and and blame everybody. And so, what have they done? They divided the heck out of us. And the
Mhm.
truth of the matter is, they can divide us till they're blue in the face, but we are connected to one another. Okay. I'm connected to you. You're connected to me. Because there's only one source of energy, and that's what we're all connected to. And that's what fuels everything. Right. So if you're suffering, I'm suffering. I may not know it and I might not equate that, but when there's suffering in the world, it's going to affect I have my individual consciousness, as do you, but there's the collective consciousness. And so which right now is really struggling, right? So that's affecting us, all of us, in some way or another, whether there's a lot of anxiety in the world, there's a lot of stress in the world, there's a lot of physical illness in the world right now because of this connection. And so, Eckhart Tolle wrote a beautiful book called The Power of Now. He talks about the pain body, right?
I
But
was
he
just
also
talking to
talks
someone about
yeah,
that.
but he also talks about the collective pain body. And I really think that's what's going on in the world right now. So my mission right now is my mission for a long time has been to serve those less fortunate and try to raise consciousness that way. We can't fight the system. The system is too entrenched. The system's got all the money and the power. So and the system is actually, a lot of parts of the system are being destroyed right now, which is going to create a lot of havoc, in the coming days for us, the regular humanity. Things are going to get, more and more difficult. They've already been difficult the last few years or so. And I think they're going to get more difficult as these old systems collapse and we're going to these newer systems. I feel as if we're going from a masculine energy, which is power, penetration, domination, um, to a feminine energy. And I think this is a pattern that happens, every 26,000 years or whatever. And what's feminine energy? Feminine energy is open, nurturing, loving. So I really do think we are in a major shift of humanity right now. And I don't think it's the first time this ever happened. At first, I wasn't too excited about it, but now I'm becoming more and more excited about it because a lot of these systems do need to collapse because there's way too much injustice in the world. The world needs to become more fair. For all, everybody should have a good opportunity to create something, but there's so much poverty in the world today. There's so much suffering in the world today. There's so much unfairness. And that's really what my life is about, is trying to create a more balanced playing field for those that aren't born into a good situation. They should still have an opportunity.
Well,
In America, that we
so
talk about
let's let's sit on this for a second, right? Because
yeah,
you're
but
talking about, making the playing field fair, and I'm all for that. Where my mind always kind of gets tripped up is, and I'm sure you've heard about this, which is like Pareto distribution, or the 80-20 principle, and for those listening who might not know, basically the idea is that 80% or like 20% of things have 80% of those things. So like a couple examples, 20% of all solar systems have 80% of all mass in the universe, or 20% of people have 80% of wealth, or, and this is a fun one that I've seen, is that 20% of population or cities have 80% of the people. So like, 20% of the countries have 80% of the people, or, and it's crazy. And it's a little variant. It seems like it fluctuates between like 70 and maybe 90% based on what you're looking at. But how, this is because this is where I've always been like, okay, like I'm down for the idea of leveling the playing field, making things equal. I'm down for the hypothetical, like the theoretical idea of socialism. We know that it doesn't work in practicality, but it seems like it doesn't account for the 80-20 principle. And so have you come to any understanding in your own life, or how we can actually have the appreciation for the fact that 20% of people are going to end up doing 80% of the work, but then find a way to make things even more balanced than what I would argue it's obviously the best it's ever been in our modern history, but like, how do we even make it quote unquote more fair, or more a level playing field, given the natural principle of the 80-20 rule?
well, the first thing that pops into my mind as you're talking. By the way, I used my entire career, I was an automobile dealer, and I started as a car salesman. So same principle applies. 20% of the guys sells 80% of the cars, right? So
For
same
sure.
principle. And but what I was thinking when you were talking about, I was thinking back to like a couple hundred years ago when we had the indigenous people, the American Indians, right? And I don't think you could get away with that, 20% doing 80% of the work, because we're a community, we're a very intimate community, we're a tribe, and you got to pull your weight, I got to pull my weight, and the elders. It takes a village to raise a child. Today we got no one raising our kids. Okay,
Mm.
I had a business in Oakland, California for 26 years, so I'm very intimate with the African American community. I'm very intimate of watching a city literally self-destruct in half of my lifetime, and I saw how it happened, and and it's all because of unfairness, and it's all because I think government is to blame in that particular instance,
Well,
and that
can we break that down a little bit? Because
yeah,
if you've
go
had
ahead.
this firsthand experience, can you break down what you like? What are some examples of unfairness or
Well,
reasons that government would be
let
to
me
blame?
yeah. So I'll tell you where this unfairness thing really happened for me, right? So in 2002, my 29-year-old girlfriend at the time was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And so, and we'd only been in a relationship together for less than a year. So we eventually, we start learning about that and finding out. We felt very fortunate that we were dealing with Stanford, the head of oncology. We felt very blessed, right? We didn't know anything. She was 29, I was 43. We didn't know much. And so, long story short, she passes away in 2011 after a 9-year battle with this breast cancer. She's only 38 years old. At the same time, literally within weeks, a buddy calls me up and he says, Mike, my sister-in-law is moving from Montana to the San Francisco Bay Area because she has stage 4 breast cancer and she wants better oncologists. Can you help? Can you introduce her to my late wife's name was Margot? Can you introduce her to Margot's oncologist? I said, sure, no problem. So her name was Amanda. I take her to Margot's oncologist, like every doctor in the world, even though she just had tests 2 weeks ago, he wants to order new tests, right? I think they're all in this together. And so
I've
I go,
experienced that
I had
myself.
nothing to do. I have nothing to do because my wife had just passed. So I go with you, Amanda. So we went to like 4 different tests. She had one surgery, she had a port put in, she had another little surgery for some testing. So I had like 4 experiences where I was, instead of where I've been for 9 years, the husband or the boyfriend in this role, here I am just a friend, observer, not even really a good friend. Obviously, she's African American, I'm white. My wife had really good insurance and me with her all the time when we had resources. Amanda didn't. She didn't have a husband. She didn't have that great insurance. She didn't have good resources. So for the first 2 weeks while we're doing these tests, what I noticed was they treated her differently than they treated my wife. They would either talk down to her or talk over her. And it just made me feel very uncomfortable, but wasn't my place to say anything. Excuse me. We go back to my late wife's oncologist. He says, Amanda, the best protocol to extend your life are these 3 chemotherapies simultaneously. Unfortunately, your insurance will only pay for one, and that's all I can give you. I got to tell you, I was blown away by that. And I never in my mind I never thought like this, right? I just said, hey, man, here's my credit card. You give her whatever it is she needs. And that became shortly thereafter the Love for Margot Foundation. And I spent 4 or 5 years of my life giving financial grants to women below the poverty line while they battle cancer. And let me tell you, they don't have a freaking chance. I mean, it's so unjust. Martin Luther King said, an insult to justice anywhere is an insult to justice everywhere. And I saw it firsthand in this medical world. And I see it today, even now. Okay. I mean, I have some health issues, but I'm able to pay. I get concierge doctor. I got my doctor's text now. I can text them. I go to these doctors. Traditional medicine is really, for poor people, it's terrible. I mean, it's really terrible. I was getting an MRI, a heart MRI the other day in Stanford, and the nurse told me, she says, I can't work here anymore. I'm leaving medicine. I can't practice medicine like this. It's all about money is what she said. And so there's one thing. Now we know there's injustice in the criminal system, the legal system, and when it comes to crime.
Well, let's stick on the medical then, because
Go.
I feel like I'm hearing it. First of all, I mean, it's super great what you've done, and I kind of looked through the stuff that you've done with I'm losing my train of thought now, with help, first of all, just helping her at a foundational level, giving her some of your resources to help out. But like, help me out, help me understand the bigger picture here, right? Because I see exactly what you're saying with this being it sounds to me that your perception was that this was racially based. This was
No, not racially. No, it wasn't racially. It
okay.
was more monetarily. See, even the racial problem in America is economic. Okay, it's not race; it's economic injustice is what's ruined the African American community, not racism.
So you're saying because she has it's okay. This is interesting.
She had no husband. She didn't. I'm comparing her to my wife. Okay, my wife was amazingly beautiful with amazing positive personality. Amanda was different, just different. That's all. And my late wife was Latina, so she was brown. Amanda was a little darker brown, not much. It wasn't race. It was it was one, she didn't have an advocate. My wife always had me there as an advocate. So she didn't have an advocate. She didn't have great insurance, and she didn't have additional resources that more money was required to do this or that. But it wasn't racism. It was more
Okay.
than that. It
Well,
was
then
economic disparity.
well, so that's interesting. But then you were saying that they were talking either down or over her, right? Like
Yeah,
what?
what I mean by that is that, you know, first of all, you don't get a lot of time to talk to these people. You know, they got your life in their hands, but they don't have any time to talk to you. Okay, that's one terrible thing about
Oh,
Western.
for sure. They get paid based on
Yeah,
how many patients
when
they
I go
see
to a
as
doctor
opposed
here in
to like
Colombia,
what they
I go to a
fix.
doctor here in Colombia. I can talk to the doctor for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. They'll talk to me for an hour. Okay, because they really care about you. When you go to America, it's all money, money, money. They got to get you in and out. They got to turn it. They're not going to make any money. So that was really the bigger issue there, is that they wouldn't give her time to ask questions and understand her question and interpret her question and answer her back. That's what I mean by that. You know, there was never, it was just wham bam thank you man kind of thing. You know, and when I was there with my wife, okay, you're not going to pull that with me. Okay,
Mm.
that's my point. They've not even point. They might have tried that with my wife, but that's my point. Is that it just, she wasn't receiving the same care that we were receiving. And I don't think it had anything to do with racism. I think it had to do with personalities and money.
Okay. And then it sounds like though there might have also been a component, the fact that I mean, because you were, okay, so I guess you were there to
I
also
wasn't there in a
talk on
role as
her.
I wasn't there as an advocate or husband or boyfriend or anything like that. I was just quietly sitting in the corner as an observer.
Right. And so do you think that that may have had also a pivotal role in it, where with your late wife that you were more active, more engaged with it versus in the section situation where you're a little bit more passive until like kind of the snapping point came? Do you
Yes,
think that had a big issue or content or change or
well,
whatever?
it's hard for me to answer that objectively because I wasn't there every time with my wife. But I will tell you this, especially when the last 6 months when she was terminal and I was with her every second, is that for sure I played a pivotal role. But with that said, you know, I I did an amazing, enormous amount of studying, research, and reading. Okay, the people with the economically poor people, they don't have the resources, they don't have the time, they really don't even maybe have the knowledge to do all that. So that's the other part of the ingredient, right? Is that, you know, before we would go, say, let's say they're going to do brain surgery on my wife, I mean, I would Google the heck out of it, I would research the heck out of it, and
Mhm.
then I would look at her afterwards and say, okay, we're having these issues. I Google that. Do I need to call the doctor? And for anybody out there that's going through a health issue, have an advocate, you know, and keep all your records. You never know where this is going to go. And we had one time when there was crisis, we had 48 hours to collect 8 years worth of medical records throughout four different cities all over the state of California. And so
Jeez.
keep your records, have an advocate, and take notes, and don't let them push you around. You know, get your answers, and you've got to be your own advocate. This is what I would tell people. You know, you just because they're wearing a white coat and they have a stethoscope around their neck, okay, it's still called a practice. It's a medical practice, okay, and it's not exact science. And you're the patient, you're the customer, you're the client, but they tend to push us around and say, you know, we're just dumb idiots and we don't know anything. Well, wait a minute, this is my body, this is my life. I want to know what the heck you're doing, and I want to know why you're doing it. And I and 9 times out of 10, they can't tell you that. Okay, so imagine that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a pretty wild and unfortunate situation because I mean, even to emphasize, I know that there's the whole revolving door situation where it's, get if you see 20 patients a day, then it's successful versus if you only see 10, you lose money, which is a terrible and broken model. And so I
Terrible.
guess this kind of brings us back then is to what we're pointing at here, which is where right like the level playing field aspect, because I feel like that's the underlying tone here. Are you pointing towards, and maybe I'm inferring here, but I'm curious, like, are you pointing towards the fact that our country, our economic model is so purely based on money that it's subsiding the individual, like it's putting money above the individual, which is then getting portrayed or precluded as people who don't have resources, which in this case was an African American lady? Is that where this like kind of disparity gap is coming in? Like help me understand this like level the playing field aspect a bit more.
I'll tell you exactly what I think is happening. Now, keep in mind, I'm 66 years old, so I have more reference points than you do. I have more experience than you.
Of
I've
course.
seen things, right? And so what I see today is that everything's a big corporation. For example, when I was growing up, the hardware store was owned by Frank. Okay. The barber shop was owned by Charlie. Okay. The grocery store was owned by Walt. There was Butcherman Joe. Okay. Now it's all Walmart and blah, blah, blah. And see, here's the difference. Joe, Charlie, Bob, all these people, what do they have that a corporation doesn't have? They have a heart and they have a soul. Okay. These corporations don't have a heart and they don't have a soul. They have shareholders and all they care about is money. And now when you switch that over in the medicine, same thing. Every hospital is a part of a big chain. All these doctors are part of big groups. And it's all corporations now. It's not this guy is the doctor who's my neighbor. It's a big corporate thing. And you got to jump through all these hoops. And then everybody's a specialist. Well, wait a minute. My body is, my liver is connected to my kidneys, which is connected to my skin, which is connected to my blood, which is connected to my brain, which is connected to someone's got to figure out this whole organism. Well, no, they're going to send you over there for, your kidney and over there for your heart and over there for your, and so there's no wholeness. There's no, let's treat the entire organism, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual. There's none of that when it comes to medicine. And then the economic, everything is about money now. Everything, And so that's my whole point. The only way this is going to change is if you and I change it. Okay. You got to find a way to play a role to raise the level of consciousness. I got to find a way to play a role to raise the level of consciousness from dark to light, okay, from evil to good. This is the battle that's going on right here. So when I can help someone less fortunate than myself, I've just raised consciousness a little bit, okay? And if we're all connected and we're not divided, okay, you got gay, straight, Christian, Muslim, it's crazy how they divide us, Republican, Democrat. But if we realize that we're connected, and when you thrive, I thrive. And when you suffer, I suffer. Then I want what's best for you. That's why the golden rule, do unto others as if you have others do unto you. So I think this is the only way right now for humanity to get through whatever's going on here and to take back our power and quit being a victim and go back to becoming creators. It's you and me. It's individuals helping one another to navigate through this. And because the bigger these corporations get, they want one world. They want, their whole thing is one world order, one religion, one language, one banking, one everything. Okay. So that's total control. So whoever they are, the elite, whoever they are, okay, they want really slavery for you and me. And you and I, we want freedom. And so there's where things are starting to clash right now. Probably not the first time it's ever happened in history, but I do sense that it's happening now, and it's kind of ugly.
Yeah, and there's a lot to touch on there. I'm thinking back to how you started this, which was with the almost corporatization of every industry. Because recently, I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and recently I was going to make an order on Amazon. I had all these like electronics picked out for cameras and for microphones and all this different stuff. And it came out to a pretty hefty bill. And I'm thinking to myself on Amazon, I'm like, wait a second. I was like, I should actually go and give to the community. I should go and find like a local Pittsburgh electronics shop and buy there.
Yeah, but there isn't one.
You ruined the punchline, man. Well, so I end up going to one of the pawn shops in the area, like electronic store, and I'm like, hey, do you guys have any like electronic stuff or, microphones? And they were like, we can check. They looked, they didn't have anything. And the guy behind the counter is like, the best thing you can do is if you know what you have, or you know what you want, just order it on Amazon. And I'm like, fuck, dude. I was like, the one reason I came in here was so I didn't buy it on Amazon. And he's like, I'm like, do you know of any other electronic stores that are like mom and pop, home owned? He's like, no, the only thing in store is going to be like Best Buy, but their prices are like 30% higher. Your only option is to go to Amazon. I'm like,
exactly right.
I'm like, shit, dude, this is not an ideal situation to put this much power into one centralized place. And here's the catch-22 of it.
Just think when they sell it all. Just imagine that.
Well,
or when the Federal Reserve goes to a digital currency, and that's the only money there is. Your only money comes from the Federal Reserve as a digital currency. They see every dime you spend, And if you say something they don't like, they just turn you off. Adios.
Well, I mean, we can get into that whole sector as well with like crypto and Bitcoin. That's a fun conversation, but where it's interesting though is that there is a piece of us, or at least a piece of me, that's like super convenient. It's super easy. I can just
Well,
punch two
absolutely.
buttons and get something delivered to my house. I can sit here
Absolutely.
and just make it super simple to send you money through my bank, or you know, crypto's a little
Now,
bit different, but
so Clayton, let me ask you this. Wouldn't it be a beautiful world that if Jeff Bezos and Amazon, they said, hey, listen, we know we're the elephant in the room. We know we're doing all this revenue and business. But instead of me floating around the Mediterranean in my 450 billion or $1 million yacht, whatever it is, okay, I'm going to donate 10% of all of our profits to these people less fortunate. We're going to make a difference in the world. I call it conscious capitalism. Okay, and this is what we do at our retreat center. We charge people with money and we give scholarships to people that don't have money that have a huge need, and people that we think really deserve it, and people we think that can really take it and run with it and create a better version of themselves and a better version of the world for their family and their community. So that's what I'm talking about. You know, you and me, or a company like Amazon. Just imagine if Amazon did that. Okay, that would change everything. Okay,
it would
because
be
if
huge.
Amazon does it, then everybody else has to do it.
But I think there's a really, I think, important point there though, which is take it and run with it. Because I think that there's also the rightfully so, and this is a right leaning position, which is if we have welfare or if we have certain monetary organizations that just hand out money, it's going to induce people to just be lazy. I mean, look at everything they did with COVID and just kept printing money, and that's
Disaster.
going to create a whole nother issue. But at some level, right, is how do you know the people who are actually going to run with it, who are actually going to use it to produce out of giving back or creating to the world, as opposed to saying like, okay, I'm just going to keep taking this, because if you're just handing it out, it's kind of creating a subservient in a sense.
So in my mind, in my world, okay, hey, you need 2,000 a month to survive, and you don't have it, and there's no job. Okay, so you show up every day here at 9 o'clock. You do this at 4 o'clock for the community, whatever it is. Okay, and then you get a paycheck. I live here in Medellin, Colombia. Okay, and a couple things I'll just point out that are interesting. Right, we don't have parking meters. So if I were to get my car and go downtown right now and park, there's a human being. Okay, and I park, so the human being helps me park. Then they print out a little thing and they stick it to my car. And then when I come back, they look at the time on that, and then they collect. They watch my car while I'm in the store. Okay, I think it's 400 cars a night in San Francisco tonight. Every night get their windows busted and stuff
Probably
stolen.
more than
Okay,
that,
so I have someone watching
but
my
yeah.
car. I come back and I pay them. But think of all these people that are employed, okay, that wouldn't be employed if they had parking meters. Or I go to play golf here. There's no golf carts. There's 150 kids caddying. Okay.
Mm.
When I was a kid, I grew up caddying. So we have to start think, but everybody's thinking as a corporation. How can we make more money? How can we maximize every bit of profit? How can we become lazier and make more? That we have to change our mindset. Somewhere we got so far off the rails, from these communities and these tribes and this it takes a community, to create a beautiful world, and the way we're structured right now, they just take more and more taxes, they waste way more and more. And listen, the homelessness in America is out of control. The debt in America is out of control. We got to change something. The definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. We keep doing the same thing and we keep getting the same results, but nobody's doing anything about it. So that's why I'm saying now it's up to you and me. We can't count on governments. We can't count on these corporations. So for people that care, we have to find a way. So what I'm doing is, we give scholarships to people to come to our retreat center. That's our little way. That's all I got. That's all I can do. But I'm doing something.
Right. And again, I'm all on board with that, right? And I think that the underlying, like, first of all, just however this conversation goes from here, I'm 100% on board that something needs to change whenever we're looking at the overall structure of society. Whenever I kind of see these things occurring, it always interests me with, kind of this, let me see here. There's always like this underlying catch 22. because even in your situation, right, you need to make money in order to be able to give that
Exactly.
out to
Exactly.
people in these disenfranchised areas or people who need to have scholarships to kind of grow. I think the
Exactly right.
I think the other thing that deserves like kind of this attention, if you will, is the idea of convenience, right? Speed and convenience. And maybe this is something just in our psyche that we need to regulate a little bit more, but like there's so much that is just like automatic. We got to have it right away. It needs to happen now. I mean, a golf cart. The point of a golf cart is to get your ball quicker. The point of a meter is
And
just like,
to create more revenue for the club at the expense of human beings.
well,
No,
I don't
trust me.
know. But here's
Listen, if I'm paying you the caddy, the club's not getting anything. But if I'm renting the cart from the club, now they're getting revenue from that golf cart.
so I'm not going to say that the answer is 100% no to that, right? I guess there's probably an element of that, but I'm bringing this almost back to the individual as well, where me personally, like if I personally want the convenience of not walking, be a little bit lazier, get to my ball faster, that is a cost, and then even cheaper, right? It's cheaper than paying someone to carry your club. So, you're making this cheap, more expensive, less expensive, a cheaper but more efficient way of doing something. And I can see how you are then rewarded money for doing such a thing. It's that's almost like the underlying theme that is occurring at a global scale, right? Like that's Amazon's model. We're going to do it
But
the cheapest and the fastest.
it's factual, but it doesn't make it right. And so that's the problem. We sell our soul for the cheapest money, the fastest money, but there's a price to pay. There's cause and effect in everything, right? And so one of the effects of all that is there's less jobs available, and more people unemployed, and more people homeless, and more people
Well,
suffering.
but then so what
But
do you do? Do you start telling people that they can't have things as fast and then they have to be more patient and they have to wait and that they're not
well,
able to, they have to pay more for things?
so like I said earlier, what in a perfect world, you don't do anything. In Amazon, Jeff Bezos says, "Hey, you know what? I see all the suffering in the world. Amazon, our board of directors, we just voted today. Starting tomorrow, we take 10% of our quarterly earnings, which is billions of dollars, and we're going to give it to this community over here, or we're going to do this project over here, or we're going to clean up all the homelessness over here." That's what has to happen. You can't force this on people. It has to come from a spirit of love, a spirit of contribution, a spirit of realizing that all humanity's connected, and that if you're suffering, I'm suffering. But corporations don't think like that. Corporations don't have a heart. Corporations don't have a soul. So therein lies part of the problem.
Hmm. I'm looking up right now because I keep bringing up Jeff Bezos and Amazon. So I do want to look up how much Amazon donates. I'm only finding how much Jeff Bezos.
So they have a program, Amazon Smile, and so they do they do donate money. But they take a percentage of what I spend on Amazon Smile. I designate who I want to give it to, and they do it. I don't know. It's not a great deal of money. I can tell you that much.
Let's see here. GeekWire.com says Amazon hits $100 million in donations. This was in 2018.
Yeah,
Amazon hits 100 million in donations to more than 1 million charities in 5 years through Amazon Smile.
yeah.
Amazon has now donated more than $100 million since 2013. Oh, okay. So for 5 years. Oh, so it took them 5 years to donate $100 million.
And he just bought a $450 million yacht to land his helicopter because his new yacht doesn't have a helicopter pad. I mean,
Oh, Amazon.
this is the kind of excess that just makes me want to climb up a tree.
Amazon announced the donation milestone Monday, back in 2018, December or October 29th, 2018. So whatever that was before then. And said some items like its in-house Alexa power devices, it will donate 5% of the price, 10 times the usual rate of 0.5% through the end of the week. The program lets customers choose from more than a million charities to starting their shopping. Smile.amazon.com, which is kind of interesting, right? Because even their Alexa
Yeah,
powered device, which is
their
is
product,
kind
their
of
product.
used to do the same exact thing we're talking about, which makes things more easy for you to order from Amazon, and on top of that is likely a data collection tool at the same
For
time.
sure, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, by those numbers, right? It definitely seems like there could be more donating going on, but 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 here's the question though, right? Is like how
But
much
Clayton,
like
let me add, I'm also not just talking about money. Okay. Let's say down the street from me, there's an old man who has no family and no one ever visits him. And so I'm going to say, hey, how about if we come and play checkers once, 1 hour a week or 1 hour a month? Or how about we come and play cards? Or can I just come hang out with you? That kind of giving. These are the kind of things that will raise consciousness, the energy. Tesla said you want to understand the universe, you have to understand energy, vibration, frequency. These are the kind of things. It's not all about money. There's a million ways to donate my time, my energy, my knowledge, my life, right? So I think it's an attitude that we need to address here, an attitude of selfishness, an attitude of greed, an attitude of not giving a shit about my neighbor. When I was a kid and we move into a new neighbor, a new house, a dozen neighbors show up with cookies and cakes. Okay, today people live in an apartment building and there's 6 people on their floor and they hide from one another. This is the kind of
mm,
stuff I'm talking about, is that we have to be more heart-based, more soul-based, more connected that way. That's the energy I'm talking about. Of course, money plays a big role in this. There's no doubt about it. But there's more to it than money. It's an attitude, I think. It's an attitude of, let's say, hey, let's stop some of this unnecessary suffering that I see out there.
I think that's also a probably a very important point because the way that I was even approaching this, and maybe generally we were approaching this conversation at the beginning of this, was looking at it in terms of money, right? Like how should we run a business? How should money be done? But I think you're stepping on something that's extremely important and probably more important, which is how do we make ourselves a better person
Yes.
and help people who are maybe in some way, shape, or form just slightly below us in the consciousness spectrum. And just
Yes.
by doing that, money will naturally find a way, or organizations will naturally find a way so that it becomes this more what deems to be quoted as more equitable, more level playing field.
Right. Exactly.
Like that'll just be a natural byproduct where it's like,
Because that's the way the universe works. I always say you can't outgive God. And let's say you're in a jam, okay, and I give you $100, okay, because you're going to starve, okay. I'm going to get blessed. Now, I might get blessed with a new relationship. I might get blessed with a new idea. I might get blessed for a million different ways, right? Or I might go play checker with that old man, and then I might get blessed monetarily. There is no, but the one thing is for certain. I know for certain, it's called the law of reciprocity, and there's rules in the unseen world, just like there's rules here, like gravity. If I drop something, it's going to fall to the ground. If I give in the unseen world with a pure heart, okay, out of the goodness of my heart to support someone less fortunate than myself, I am going to be blessed. And it's not 1-to-1, it's 5x, 10x, 50x. That's the kind of thing but you got to do it with a pure heart. So you have to have that heart. And what I see is people today, this is a big part of what I talk about. We have to move. Everybody has to take a journey. And most people take it in that last breath of their life. And that's moving from the head, which is the insane asylum, and into the heart. See, I can lie to you with my brain. I can cheat you. I can manipulate. I can get brainwashed myself. I can believe shit that's not true. I can have stuff up here I've never questioned. It's ridiculous. But when I'm here, I can't cheat you from here. I can't lie to you from here. Okay. This is my soul. This is my heart. This is my essence. So what I learned is when I moved my living from here, the fear-based ego that's not even real, when I moved from there to here, now I can use this supercomputer because it is a supercomputer. Okay. But it's not using me. I'm using it because I create the intention or the desire that I want from my heart that's going to serve me and my family. Okay. Now I can use this mind, this powerful brain to create a plan to manifest what it is that I truly want. So I think that's step number one, because why do we quit living from our heart? We're born, we live there, right? But then we get hurt. Okay. We get hurt as a child. Who's a god when we're a little 2, 3, 4 year old, mom and dad, right? And we climb up on the table in the living room and we spill a drink and all hell breaks loose. And what happens? We contract. The little heart
yeah,
contracts. Then
plain
we go.
floor's lava.
Then we're eighth grader and the girl, won't give us a Valentine. We contract some more. And that girl says no to the prom. Blah blah blah. So now we've got to move up into this insane asylum where the critic lives, the judge lives, the insane asylum lives. And now we're kind of screwed because this is fear based. This is love based. We got to go back to this.
Right. And so then, because this, it seems to me that there are a lot of perpetual issues that are like these very general manifestations in the world that seem to come from very common as you're saying, contractive patterns, but generally speaking, they're usually referred to like as traumas. But it does seem like there are these like very general sweeping things, right? The angry tyrant of a father who kind of scolds and acts as if a dictator in the family household, and then you have the likely abused wife who then kind of cuddles up and isn't as nurturing as maybe she could be, or she's over nurturing, and it becomes a so these expand out right into these monolithic issues. And I think, and this kind of goes to your point also, is that it's all connected. Maybe that certain pattern uh creates the tyrannical father creates this organized structure that we see with money. And it's kind of funny because I haven't thought about this in a while, but I know whenever I was kind of coming up in life, or not coming up in life, yeah, I was coming up in life, but this was probably like a couple years ago. And I think it would have probably been whenever Russia started invading Ukraine, and I had been dealing with like food issues, and I think I hit this turning point where I realized that I had a scarcity mentality around food. And I remember, I went through like this breathing exercise and all this stuff, and it like hit me. It was like looking at a bowl like that's half filled with food, like gave me anxiety. I was like, oh shit, there's not enough. I was like, where am I going to get more food? Where's this going to come from? And it was interesting because I went home that day. I like made myself less food, felt through those feelings, kind of processed it, and out came from that. And I know this is going to sound weird. I know this is going to sound bizarre, and I know that people might make fun of me for this, but I know there was this feeling that was like this scarcity, and I was like, I wonder if at some level, me creating the scarcity inside me is connected to the scarcity that Vladimir Putin's feeling that caused him to invade Ukraine. Or, it was the same feeling. And it really had me questioning, like, by me healing this in myself, am I doing any sort of healing on this metaphysical quantum level that now Putin might not be as pressured or feeling that scarcity within his own country as well? And so I'm totally in, man. At some level, I feel like there is that connection that, if you're seeing all this evil out in the world, whether it's, wars or, violence, it's like look into your own life of where you're acting in that same energetic pattern and see if you can find a way to heal it or rectify it.
Yeah. Amen. Amen.
So is
You
that
were
something
talking.
you've seen?
Yeah. So
Go
I,
ahead.
I, I want to elaborate a little bit because
Please do.
there's a woman who's probably one of the greatest spiritual teachers in the world today. Her name is Byron Katie. And I heard her say once that the worst thing anybody can ever be found guilty of is believing a thought that's not true. Think about that. The worst thing anybody can ever be found guilty of is believing a thought that's not true. So I get this thought, my wife's a bitch, I need to kill her. Okay. Now the crime is I killed her,
Oh,
but it started with this thought that I never questioned. And the problem is we get these thoughts and we never question them. And some of the bad ones, some of them are bad thoughts. Well, I don't know where they come from. They just show up, right? But we need to question them, and we get rid of the ones that don't serve us. Get rid of the ones that don't make us the best version of ourselves. Get rid of the ones that don't serve our family and our community. And so that's what it comes down to, is controlling these thoughts and realizing that I am in control. And I'm not my thoughts. Okay. My thoughts come and go. And I'm not my body. I'm eternal, timeless consciousness. I'm energy, I'm spirit, I'm soul. And when you live from that place, fear dissipates. And when you no longer have fear, then what do you have? You have freedom. And so that's how I like to live my life, is total freedom, because I question every thought that I have, and I get rid of the ones that don't serve me. And so I think that's, if people would start doing that, I think but with that said, let me remind you, you're always going to have good and evil here. We live in duality. Whatever this is, whatever's holding this frequency, this dimension together, okay, it's duality. It's good and evil, black and white, hot and cold, okay? That's why we have the yin yang circle, right? Half black, half white. What I see the problem in the world of today is out of balance. Okay. And so the black is taking over the white, and we need to push it back. How do we push it back? We push it back through love, through contribution, through gratitude, through joy. That's all. We just got to bring the world back into balance. You're always going to have suffering in this frequency right here, but it's out of control right now. And so I think for us, we need to just quit the bickering, quit the division, realize, it doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter what your sexual preference is. It doesn't matter what your politics are. We can agree to disagree, but we don't have to hate. See, there's way too much hate, which is an energy, and it's a low vibrating energy, and it brings us all down. We need to lift that energy up. That's all.
So using your yin yang symbol, is there a time, in your time on earth that you can think of that it was like, what's the status maybe throughout your life of that yin yang symbol? Like, was there a time whenever it was more, let's say, harmonious? Has it like drastically became darker in the last several years? Is it always been kind of symbol, like, has it always been kind of balanced and then only recently? Because it's something that I feel like, maybe technology has something to do with it,
Well,
or
technology for sure is speeding everything up. And then the 24/7 news cycle is making us conscious and aware. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. Okay. Well, this is my lifetime. Okay. 20-year-old kid with a girlfriend that lives, you write a letter. Okay. You have to write a letter. And then you have to be anxious for 3 or 4 days, or 5 or 6 or 7. Is she going to write back? Okay. But guess what? We were more conscious. We were more present. We were more aware. And so you asked me a question, right? And so immediately what pops in my mind, dude, I was born white in 1957 in America. Do you think I had a leg up on some poor kid born in Africa, or some poor kid born in Palestine? Of course. But what's happening now is, so the reason this is so real for me is that I've seen the decline of America. Well, when America is declining, I've also seen here in Medellin, Colombia, the arising of something good, right? Where this country used to be just subjected to terror every single day, is now having more and more freedom. Here we have a rising middle class, which we had in the 60s in America when I was growing up. We had a rising middle class, and we had one news show a night, Walter Cronkite, I mean, and life was simple. And we get up at 7 a.m. in the summer, and we wouldn't come home until the street lights came on, 9 p.m., right? And no, mom and dad weren't worried about some pedophile nabbing us. I mean, so yes, so things are evolving and very quickly, but in some places getting better. And I think it's always been this way. Think back, imagine being, alive in 1943, 44, World War II, Holocaust and all that, Pearl Harbor. So listen, you're always going to have this stuff. It's more noticeable to me now because it's happening to my country. It's happening to me on my front door, right? But it's always been going on. But what I think is what's happening, you hit the nail on the head, is because of technology, because of this electronics, because of these news cycles. And even, the Bible talks about this, and I'm not endorsing the Bible, and I'm not saying these are the end times, but it talks about the apocalypse. And what does apocalypse mean? It just means lifting of the veil. So that's what I think is going on. It's the Wizard of Oz, and we're finally seeing behind the curtain. We're saying, holy shit, it's Joe Biden. Okay. Or whatever we're saying. Excuse me. But that's what I think is happening. And you hit the nail right on the head. Things are coming at us so fast. I mean, and it's overwhelming. And I'm really, really trying to get off this electronic stuff. I got a 20-acre farm here. I'm trying to spend more time there in nature. I'm
oh,
trying
you
to get
should.
this stuff out of my bedroom. I mean, because it's affecting my health now. And I think it's affecting everybody's health.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I know personally, like, I have to start setting timers on like
Yeah.
Instagram, and even just being a part of the content creation model. Like, even this, I want to get to a point where I can just do interviews in person. It's like,
Hey,
even just having
pretty
to sit
soon.
here.
Hey, pretty soon it's going to be Chat GTP. You're going to be Chat GTP over there. I'm over here, and it's Chat GTP, and we're going to be at the beach.
Well, I think that's a really important. I'm actually super fascinated about this idea of lifting the veil from the Bible, though, because I've only heard the apocalypse as like doom and gloom, but I do think that
Right.
there's a. Do you know by chance like what it would be 2 Corinthians? Because that's what I found about lifting the veil.
It could be, but it could be in Revelations as well. But it could be in, I'm not sure exactly where it is. And I think apocalypse is mentioned more than once, right? So you have to Google the definition of
Okay.
apocalypse in those times, right?
Revelations. Right, because I mean, we always see, it's the end of times, but it's like
Oh, it's a lifting
this.
of veil. The truth is being revealed.
Well, the question is like what ends of times? It's like you're saying, like the end of.
Exactly.
Is it the end of the corporate structure of America? End of times, because that's like kind of a cool
Well,
apocalypse to be a part
that,
of, you know?
that I would bet on that one as a go.
Yeah,
But there will be a new superpower. In 71, Kissinger went to the Saudis and said, "Hey, you need to sell oil for dollars." Well, now that you can buy oil with Chinese chopsticks, and they rather have chopsticks because they're worth more than paper and ink, right? There is a shift going on in the world. There's no doubt about that. But there's always a shift going on. So what we have to worry about is our own personal consciousness, our own soul. And so that's why I say we got to move out of here and into here and be with one another and be present, be aware, be conscious. This is what we all need. People are suffering, but they're suffering because they're lonely, suffering because they're afraid, suffering because they don't know, suffering because they're confused. And I get it. Okay. I
Well,
totally get it.
I think a big suffering that's occurring is ignorance. I've seen it broken down
Oh,
into
good.
three
Good.
types of suffering. It's physical, mental, and then ignorance. And it seems to me
Yes.
that there's especially as we're talking about like technology, it seems
Yeah.
that there's this huge ignorance occurring in regards to how we should actually use this machine, use this, development. And I think that once we hit the point of AI, if we aren't raised our consciousness just enough, things might get a little weird for the worst. And
Yeah.
so I definitely, because my background, I'm not sure how much research you do on
I
me, but
thought
my
I heard
background,
engineer. I listened to show 000. I thought I said you were an engineer. I know
yeah,
you were
software engineer,
I know you were headed to Brazil, but was it engineering?
software engineer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you did but like with my background, I'm like very fascinated about these parallels that are occurring between like how rapidly technology is just taking off, and then you also have consciousness, which seems to be doing. And now I don't know if it's because I'm surrounding myself with people who are spiritual or conscious or whatnot, but
It's
it seems
growing
to
though. It's
me.
growing. It's growing. It's growing. I feel it. I'm in this world. I'm in that business, right?
Okay.
And believe me, it is spreading because what people are finally waking up and asking questions. Okay. It's got so insane that you even the people that didn't want to critically think before are going, what, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. What'd you just say?
This guy can't read off a teleprompter and he's
Yeah,
president.
every time I
Like,
give a little talk, I started talking. I started this. I said, "Hey, listen, if anybody wants to go insane in 30 days, I have a recipe for you. Okay, all you got to do is this: every night for 30 days, you watch Rachel Maddow, and then immediately after that, you watch Sean Hannity. And I promise you, in 30 days, you will be nuts. Okay, one news story." Two completely different narratives, okay, and which neither one are true.
all right. It's like the same side of each coin, and then neither one
There
is
you
actually
go. There you
exacerbating
go.
the actual truth. It's dude, it's so crazy how we found ourselves. And again, this goes back to like our inability of using technology. And you see these people on TV, whether it's Rachel Maddow, Sean Hannity, whether it's I don't know, take your pick of anybody, even if it's just a movie, right? This has all occurred in the last 50 years, maybe max, maybe minimum, but like you're literally seeing somebody like me and you, we're across the world right now, but you're technically like my brain is telling me that you're in my house right now.
Yeah.
Like my brain is saying, okay, Mike is
We're
literally
connected.
right in
We're,
front of
we're,
you.
we're we're connected more than through energy. We're connected eyeball to eyeball, person to person. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
definitely.
It's no longer just like the etheric energies. It's like now the physical senses are picking you up. And
Yeah.
so when you take that to the next level, it's like who you're putting on your television, who you're putting in your ears. So first of all, thank you to the listeners for
And
putting
Clayton,
us in your
think about
ears.
that. Okay, think about that. So here's how they sucked us in. Okay, because I grew up with television, right? I was born in '57, so it was just it was black and white. Okay, and it turned off at midnight, and we had rabbit ears. Okay, so imagine that. But what was the programming? Keyword programming. Okay, but what was the programming to suck us in? You think they could have sucked us in with the Housewives of Atlanta? No, they sucked us in with Opie and Andy. They sucked us in with Leave It to Beaver. Okay, and then they went to the Mod Squad, and then they went to the Partridge Family. Next thing you know, the guy that won the gold medal in 1976 is sporting a pair of double D breasts, and the world's going, "Oh, what happened here?" So they're shocking us. The programming that's on today. My grandparents, they
Well,
couldn't.
for sure, and I think this is also the point that I was trying to get to was that coming back to that ignorance of not understanding how we're using these things, and I think that we are hitting that turning point of realizing the power of like what we can like of how we consume things, and the way that then that impacts like our lives, the world around us, other people. And so it's, again, this is why I'm like super grateful that people even listen to this podcast, because they're actively choosing to invite in the energy of me and my guests into their life to be like, okay, this is at least a direction that I want to think about or consider going or pursue, versus like, and that's so powerful, right? Is like having that conscious decision, right? So many people are just out of habit. Okay, throw on the news. The news is what we always watched at night growing up, so we're going to put it on now. The worst thing is that you still mentally validate or give trust to those organizations, even though their message and quite frankly the lying. It's crazy how many times they've been caught lying, yet people
Oh,
still welcome them into their home. If you had a friend who lied to you as much as like the mainstream organizations lied to you, you would not have them in your house anymore. You'd be like, dude, we can't be friends anymore. And yet people just turn it on religiously.
we could solve this whole problem if everybody in America tomorrow canceled their cable subscription or their direct TV. These people would be it'd be over. It'd be over.
Yeah, it would certainly make a dent, but again, I think this probably comes back to comfortability, right? And convenience and having certain
And
things. And so,
habit and programming. Yeah.
well, right. And so maybe there's like, because I know you've done a bunch of work in this field. So, like, what are some top tools maybe that you might have which would help people kind of push out of that comfortability, right? Of maybe either whether it's meditating, like comfortability, getting out of your comfortability patterns of breaking those generational cycles that have created these habitual patterns that we've been talking about. So, like what can we do? What is something that the individual can actually do about it?
Well, you just brought up a big word called meditating, right? So that if everybody would start doing some meditation, we could really make some inroads in this as well. But I think the most important thing is we got to get people to care. That's step number one. What do people care about today? What I see, they care about their sports teams. They care about their side hustle and making some money, or they care about their drugs or their alcohol. But we got to get people to care about one another. We got to get people to care about their family. I see so much suffering just in families, right? So we got to get people to care. Once we do that, now we got people get people to say, "Hey, what's my purpose here? What am I here to create? Why am I here?" Once we get to that stage, then there's a million ways to help people manifest what they truly want. But I think the hardest thing in the first step is to get them to wake up again. We're born awake. We fall asleep. Now get awake again and say, okay, what is my role here? Why did I come here at this particular time and space? And what am I here to create? And if we can get people thinking like that, or people that are stuck and say that's where it's tough. I'll tell you what happens is we all start out, we all want to be heroes when we're kids. Okay. Let's talk about doctors, because my heart really goes out to doctors. So doctors are beautiful people with a big heart that want to help people. Right. And so now they go, okay, I'm going to become a doctor. That feels good. Okay. And then they go to college, then they go 4 or 5 years med school, then they do their internship, and then then they get married and they have a kid or two. Then they're out of all that and they start a practice. Now they got $500,000 in student loan debt. They've been practicing for a couple of years and they go, oh, you know what? This shit doesn't really work. Now what do they do? Okay.
Yeah.
They realize, hey, I'm not really a doctor. I'm just writing prescriptions all day long. I'm not I don't feel like I'm helping people. I'm starting to question, am I helping or hurting? But now I'm trapped. What do? I got a mortgage. I got kids. I got all this debt. And so that's what I see the problem is. We gotta start educating children early about what's really going on, and we got to fix all these broken systems that are all generated by more money, more money, more money. And we got to go back to being humans and humanity, where we look out for one another. And so the system is super broke right now, especially with governments. Governments, I was just watching this thing when Ronald Reagan was on Johnny Carson, in 1980 or 79 or whenever it was. Okay. He's saying, hey, the problem is government's too big. Well, if government was too big in 1980, okay,
It
think
didn't
where
get
it is
smaller.
40. Come on, we're $32 trillion in debt. Medicare and Social Security is 173 trillion underfunded. Okay, dude. This is not going to end well. Four banks have shut down in the last year. There's probably going to be another 40 by the end of the year. So these are the things that, when I look out around and why do I care? Okay, I'm 66. Why do I care? There's three quotes that I try to live my life by. I think I already mentioned Martin Luther King's Justice and Injustice. The other one is Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He was a minister in World War II. He could have left Germany. He could have gotten out. He stayed because he said a righteous man lives for the next generation. And then I forget the guy's name. They give credit to someone else, but he basically said this: evil exists because good men do nothing. So my point is, we got to wake up and start paying attention. I have 4 kids, 7 grandkids. That's why I do what I do. If it was just me and my wife, hey, listen, you guys have fun solving your problem. But, and let me tell you the other thing. I think life and death is a big circle. And today, you and me are alive. If we walk through the forest today, half the forest is alive and half is dead. If we walk through the same forest 100 years from now, the other half is now alive and the other half is now dead. And I think that's true for us. And I really believe in reincarnation, but I also believe that if you and me play this game right, this game called Earth today, 2023, if we play this game right, we can raise to a higher frequency so that when we do have a rebirth, perhaps we can go to a higher dimension, a higher frequency. Perhaps we don't have animal bodies. We live in an animal body. We urinate, we fornicate, we defecate, but we're soul and we're spirit, right? So perhaps in the next, if we play this right, now we have a light body. We're no longer in an animal body. And perhaps we have to communicate with our voice. Perhaps in the next dimension, we communicate telepathically. So if I can read your mind, you can read my mind. You can't screw me, I can't screw you. We have to live in harmony. That's my hope. So if we can't do this here, maybe we can. I don't know. Maybe consciousness is rising to a level that we can go into this mode. Who knows? I don't know. I'm open to anything. I question everything. I realize I don't know anything. And I'm excited about infinite possibilities. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, we could definitely dive into the whole reincarnation thing, because I think we're probably on board with that as well. But I do want to kind of shift this back to the question, because, I guess we maybe briefly talked about it, but the question being, what are things people can do? Because I think once you start getting into this, this mindset, these conversations that we're having of, all these things being wrong with the system, terrible people are out there, people aren't doing good things, people are bad, people are evil.
Yeah.
It can very quickly bring you down and lower your consciousness and your frequency.
Yes.
And the media is very good at doing that.
There's a fine line.
What are, again, let's come back to this. What are maybe certain things that people can do in order for them to raise that frequency?
So I didn't come here to advertise any of my products or books, but I'm going to take a moment and do that, because this book here called The Creation Frequency, it teaches people to write a powerful intention as if it already exists, because there's no difference between imagination and reality. Whatever I can imagine in my mind and feel in my body, I could bring. There's nothing in your physical life that didn't start as a thought and a desire first. So once we learn that process, the manifestation process, and I teach people how to write a powerful intention of what they truly want from their heart, not what they thought their parents wanted, not what they think their wife wants, okay, not what the TV says they should want. No, when you close your eyes and you go in, it's interesting. We have these eyes that are always looking out, but I believe that the creator, the source, is within. I believe my power is within. I know to access my subconscious mind, where the superpower is, I need to go within. So when I close my eyes and I go within and I say, okay, what do I really want? What will feed my soul? What will serve me? What will keep me up late at night? What will get me jumping out of bed in the morning? Okay, now let's figure that out. Let's write an intention as if it already exists. So let's say I want to have a podcast show that has 1 million viewers that's all about spirituality and health and wellness. Okay. I love, and I have this podcast show. I love how 1 million of people tune in every week to listen to me. I love how I'm able to find these amazing guests. And I love how these conversations are touching so many hearts and souls. So I teach people to write that. But then I teach you I put you in a self-hypnotic trance. We have an app. You download the app and they give you a relaxation script. And so now we play theta brainwave music. We give you a relaxation script that you read and record in your own voice. Then now you're able to go from the gateway of the conscious mind into the subconscious mind. Okay. And now you're reprogramming that subconscious mind with what you truly want. But at the same time, that sound vibrational energy is going into the field of infinite possibilities and it's linking up with other like-minded people. And this is called the law of attraction. And all of a sudden, the right book shows up, the right person shows up, the right idea shows up, the right thought shows up, the right funding shows up. This is what people can do. And this is what I'm trying to say. But they got to know that what they want, right? And what's the why behind what they want? Is it just solely for money to, go buy, drugs? Okay. I mean, we got to, it's consciousness. And the higher the consciousness, then we can fix these things.
Yeah, and I think there's also probably even another element that's coming to mind as you're talking about this, right? Is on that last aspect of the why. And I know a lot of people, myself included, is like, what's your why? Well, I throughout my life have used a lot of physical whys, whether it's money, whether it's women, whether it's praise. And it's interesting because I've learned very quickly, and I think it probably takes some people a lifetime to learn, probably multiple lifetimes, to learn how there will never be enough money to satisfy that why. There will never be enough women, or not enough hot women, or not enough, desires, physical world desires, big enough house to fill those whys. And I think that's whenever you kind of get to like maybe the second or third level, whenever you hit manifestation. Because I know from my past, and I think other people I've seen, it seems like the first level of manifesting usually tends to be law of attraction, law of energy. Okay, cool. I can have anything I want. But then once you realize you can have anything you want, you start to realize, like, am I just going to set this to more people listening to my podcast, more revenue stream? Like, is that really what this is for? Like, okay, cool. I could very easily figure out how to make $1 billion company, but do I really want to spend that energy on that? And for all case and purposes, I know that it's not easy to make $1 billion company. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes into it. But if the act of making $1 billion company just for the money is your main primary source, first of all, it's likely not going to happen, because to create something so big and beautiful like that, like, I'm sitting on an Apple Mac right here, like Apple, like I'm listening to the Steve Jobs book right now. And if his only goal was to make $1 billion company, it would not have worked. There was
That,
no
that, that, that money
way it
didn't fuel
would
that.
happen.
Money didn't fuel that guy. He was a
Right.
creator. That's what fueled him. That's
Well,
my
and
whole
that's
point.
beautiful thing that comes back to all of this. You're right.
Yes.
Because he was
Yes.
so concerned about every little detail. And like, I look at my back book now and I like think about that shit and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. Like, that's why these corners are rounded. That's why this is this way. And it's really quite amazing.
It really is. The first time you unpack an iPad, it's like an orgasm. I mean, it's like so perfect, right?
Right.
Dude, how'd you do this so good?
They had so many iterations, and he was even talking about how, I don't know if they still do it, but he said like on the design team of one of the first models, they all even like they all signed a piece of paper and then they laser etched it into the inside the computer. And then they even made it so that people couldn't even open the computer if they wanted to like mod it or like make any changes, to like prove a point that even though there's a piece of space that nobody's ever going to see, we're still going to take the effort to make these meticulous details and like put your names in it that nobody knows exist except for us, because like that's how important even the unseen items, like perfecting those in the realm of beauty, like that's how important even that is at a grand scale.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
It's so incredible. And I mean,
But let's take it a step further. Go spend the next 2 hours when we're done here and examine the complexity and the intelligence of one cell. one human cell, one liver cell, one blood cell, whatever. It'll blow your freaking mind how complex, and we're made up of 50 trillion cells, but just how one cell is so complex. I did this test the other day in this doctor's office, right? You have to take like a laser camera and you put it under your tongue. And now I'm looking at my vascular system, and I'm assuming it was blood cells. I don't know, but you see these little things, you could never see them with the naked eye. Millions in my vascular system doing all this work in my body. Do I ever think of that? Hell no. But what my point is, what you're talking about, there's so many beautiful, perfect miracles out there, but we don't pay attention. We're not awake. We're not aware. We're not conscious. But when we realize this, man, then it's just your jaw drops, your eyes are wide. I'm going, wow, this is something.
Well, and even to expand that on that and almost even tie it into what we were talking about earlier, right? Like you're a living organism that is in charge of hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of different cells and organisms that's going on inside your body. And yet it becomes kind of funny whenever people sit there and say, well, I want to rule a country, or I want to be the CEO of $1 billion company. And it's like, well, can you even organize your own cells? Like, how much control do you even have over your own cells? Are you able to create that structure? Can you regulate your own emotions? Are you able to be in charge of this or of that? And yet now you can't even do it on the inside of your body, but now you're looking on the outside saying, okay, I think I can control that. I can't control this body, but like I could control everybody else's body.
Right. Insane.
It becomes a pretty fascinating dilemma that occurs there with, yeah, just the control of different aspects of who we are, what we want to be in charge of, what we think we can control. And I mean, maybe this even ties on like the scheduling thing, right? Is like, we want so much freedom, but then you get to a certain point, and this is a phase I kind of just transitioned out of, was having so much freedom with whenever I wanted to record podcasts, whenever I wanted to upload the podcast, as long as it's before Monday. You get to this point where it starts to even kind of create a little bit of stress. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, I got to get all this done by this date, got to get this done by Tuesday, got to get this done by Wednesday. And weirdly enough, it feels kind of good. Like, it feels good to get that shit done ahead of time and not need to worry about it.
Yeah, it feels great. No doubt.
Yeah. It's a wild concept that's kind of conundrum that's occurring there. Yeah. It's cool. So how did you find your way to all this spiritual and esoteric kind of stuff? Were you born? Like, what was your maybe religious or spiritual upbringing like?
Oh boy. So I grew up Irish Catholic.
Okay.
And my father was an alcoholic and my mother was a saint. But they were in love with one another, and they had 5 kids. So they pretty much ignored the kids and did their thing. But was interesting though, my father worked for Procter and Gamble, so he would be gone a week, home a week. And when he was gone, I was the oldest of 5. I was my mother's favorite, so I was the man of the house. We had a normal existence. We ate dinner at 6 p.m. Everything was perfect. My mom loved me. I was funny, and I was the oldest, so everything was great. Then my dad would come home on Friday night. My mom would go pick him up at the airport. Then they'd go out to dinner and they'd get drunk. And then they come home hungover, and then they go out and party again on Saturday, and then they get drunk, and then they're hungover on Sunday, and they either go to a football game or go to someone's house. So, and then my dad would be home that week. And so instead of having dinner at 6 and I'm the man of the house, now we're having dinner at 9. They've had 4 martinis, 5 martinis each. Now we're eating dinner at 9. I'm shaving meat out of the oven to give to the little kids. And so I lived in this bipolar existence like you can't believe. So I was a freshman in high school one day, and I just realized this is all bullshit. Whatever's going on here, I don't know what's going on, but I need to go. So I literally got on a bus in downtown Cincinnati. I got off 100 miles south in Lexington, Kentucky with $5 in my pocket, and I started hitchhiking. Whoa. And so that was the first time I ran away. So I became a habitual runaway, a habitual juvenile delinquent. Left home, in and out of home. I was running away all the time. I was arrested all the time. No one cared. Okay. So I really have the equivalent of an 8th grade education. And I got married at 21, literally right at 21, had a baby born on my birthday when I was 23. And 2 months into that, I'm living with her parents, her siblings. She's the oldest of 6. I don't have a job. I have a drinking problem. I have a drug problem. I have a self-esteem problem. I have an education problem. And I go in the mirror, it's a Sunday afternoon. I go, man, you are a loser, dude. But it really didn't bother me. But I go, but everybody in this house knows you're a loser. That bothered me. That humiliated me. So I
Mm.
literally grabbed my clothes. I didn't even own my own car, put it in one of their old junker cars and took off and went and partied for a week. Then I called my wife up and I said, okay, I'm ready to come home. No, not like my parents. She said, no, you're not coming home. So I ended up getting divorced. I actually ended up that night to church on the steps of the church, the Catholic church where we'd been married a couple of years before. And I said, okay, God, I don't believe in you. But if you really do exist and you're all powerful, then you can manifest into a human body. You can come down here, you can sit on these stairs, and I can talk to you and touch you. And then I can believe in you, and then I can change my life. So God came down. But by the grace of God, the next day I ended up in a 12-step program. And I still was so emotionally. I mean, I started drinking at 14. I
Wait, hold
I
on. What?
didn't have a
Real quick,
clue.
wait, walk me back here. You were sitting on the steps, and
A
what happened?
Catholic church. I'm sitting on steps, Catholic church. I've been drinking for a week but I'm not drunk. The alcohol's not working. I call my wife. I say, I'm ready to come home. She says, no, thank you. So now I got no place to go that night, no money, no nothing. And so I went to the church, steps of the church of the Catholic. I went to the Catholic church where we got married. The doors were locked. And so I sat at the steps and I said, okay, God, if you truly exist, okay, and you're all powerful, you can manifest into a human and sit here. I can talk to you, believe in you, and then I can change your life. And the next day, by the grace of God, I ended up at a 12-step meeting. And for the first time, I felt a little bit of hope. But nevertheless, I still couldn't get my shit together. And fast forward a couple of years later, a buddy of mine said, hey, man, dude, in the 12-step program, he says, I've never met anybody as screwed up as you, but I do know somebody that might be able to help you. And he introduced me to this guy, and this man taught me this process of law of attraction where there's no difference between imagination and reality. He taught me about balance. He taught me to write these intentions as if they already exist. At this time, I've been divorced now for over 2 years. The woman hates my guts. He says, Mike, you come here 1 hour a week for 7 weeks, and I promise you'll get everything you want in your life. And this guy didn't have a nice house. He didn't have a nice car. He didn't have nice clothes. He didn't have nice furniture. But I was so desperate. And he goes, by the way, it's $50 an hour. Okay. And I didn't have 50 cents, right? Long story short, I write him a bad check. We start this process. I find a way to feed him. He says, the first day he goes, what do you want most in your life? I want my wife and my daughter back. They hate my wife hates me. So we write an intention as if it's already exists. Lisa and I are so happily married. Our daughter, Michelle, thrives in this marriage, right? And while I'm writing, I feel weird, but all of a sudden I feel a little hope, right? And so after 6 weeks, I have 6 intentions because of balance, right? So I had get my wife back, own my own business, make $10,000 a month, own my own home, run a marathon. And he said, you have to have a contribution goal. And I said, okay, well, my dad had a troubled childhood. I had a troubled childhood. We're going to create a home for youth. Okay, so those are my 6 things. Week 7, that's when he brought out the boom box, 1982, put in theta brainwave music, hand me a microphone attached to a tape recorder with a blank cassette in it, handed me a relaxation script. He said, now read this relaxation script, read your 6 intentions, and boom, 7 weeks later, I'm $350 poorer, and I got a cassette tape, and he says, listen to it every morning and every night, and this will happen. Okay. Within 4 months, I own my own business. Now I'm 24 years old. I got no credit. I got no business history. I get the owner of the Oakland Raiders to sign a lease for a restaurant in one of his malls. I put it, and a thought comes, put an ad in the newspaper, raise the money. I write a 2 or 3 page business plan. I go out, I raise the money, I create this business. All of a sudden, I realize that I am a powerful creator. Okay. Now I'm still a messed up, screwed up guy with no education and no very bright future. But now I'm going, well, wait a minute, there's something here. Now I start reading books. Now I start going to workshops. Now I start going to seminars. Now I start mastering this shit. Then I become a car salesman. Then I become a car dealer. Now I become a commercial real estate, and now I'm making a lot of money, right? I mean, I'm giving you 30 years of history there in a short version of time. Two years after this, the woman that hated my guts calls me up and says, hey, I need a date for my company Christmas party. Will you take me? Boom, we get remarried. Have 3 more kids. So this is why I know this process works. So along those lines, let me tell you about my spiritual life. Irish Catholic, didn't believe, get into 12 steps, become a spiritual guy. That leads to becoming a born again Christian. I realize there's a lot of hypocrisy in that. That leads me to Buddhism. I've studied everything there is to study. Okay. At the end of the day, okay, it's up to us. Jesus ain't coming back. I don't think he ever left. We know he left us the Holy Spirit, but there is no savior. Okay, that's my message for me. There is no savior. You have to be your own savior. You have to be your own advocate. You are a powerful creator. And now let's go. So that's what happened to me.
It's a powerful one. So then where did this I mean, it's a powerful story. I not really sure where to jump in to kind of touch on. I mean, my mind's kind of going to the point of like reincarnation. Did you pick that up from Eastern philosophy then?
I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of contemplation, and and as I mentioned, my wife passed away in 2011, and I've had out of body experiences. I've kind of been to that world where they communicate telepathically and they're in light bodies. But I've always had an open mind about
From
all of this.
sober? Were you
What
sober with these out of body experiences, or was this drug
it was
induced?
like is like I'd gone to bed. You want to know real quick? You want to hear real quick?
Yeah, yeah,
Pretty
let's dive
fascinating.
into it.
So she died June 18th, 2011. And the first time this happened to me was maybe 3 or 4 months after that. And I'll never forget it. I've gone to bed, I'm sleeping. And then I realized that I'm this like freaking ball of energy and I am moving like you can't freaking at the speed of sound, speed of light. I'm moving so quick. And in the horizon, I see a doorway. And I know if I get through that doorway, she's on the other side. Okay. I just got to get through it. Okay. Boom. I swear to God, I'm going as fast as you can go, and I hit this doorway and it's like hitting it was all pure rubber and it threw me back into my body so hard. My body comes off the bed. I'm wide awake and I'm laughing. Okay. Now, what was interesting, I had a friend from Southern California come to Northern California that night because I was having a Christmas party for my employees the next day. And there were 3 couples that were friends with my late wife that were flying up for the party. One guy came up the night before, the other 5 people, there's 3 couples, so 6 people. One's already there, the other coming up the next day. The very next, when this guy, I tell this guy the story, when he goes and picks up the other people, there was a girl there named Stephanie that was very dear friends with my wife. And after my wife had passed, she gave me a crystal. And she said, Mike, we're really trying to conceive a baby. Will you hold this crystal and pray to Margot every night that we can conceive and have a child? So I've been doing this for 3 or 4 months. The same night that I have that dream in Los Angeles, Stephanie has the exact same dream, except when I hit that doorway, it's shaped like a heart in her dream and she catches me. So that's
Whoa.
that. Okay. So I just find that interesting, ironic. Fast forward 3 more months. Here I am again. Boom. And all of a sudden I get through. And now I'm on this most beautiful geographic place I've ever been. To the left, the most beautiful ocean with the most beautiful white sand, the most beautiful blue sky, the most beautiful white clouds. And over here is like all these hotel resorts. And I'm walking on this beautiful path with all these beautiful people. And this is where the light bodies, I realize their bodies are different. And they're about 50 feet. I see my late wife walking towards me. She looks at this girl that's sitting here eating. Telepathically, they communicate. This girl says to my late wife, is that him? She says, yes. And the next thing I know, she's got her arms around me. She says, you can't be here. And boom, back into my body. Boom, like that. And that was over a course of time. So that led me to a medium.
Well, real quick,
named
are these just dreams then, or
You tell me. I don't know. I know when I woke up, they weren't dreams. They were
what's
experiences.
telling you? What are you telling? But so you fell asleep, you had these experiences, but then what is it that's making
But
you say there's something more?
after the experience, I'm so wide awake. So it's as if I've been out of my body and now I'm back in it. But it's bizarre. It's hard to explain. Let me tell you one other thing that before
Okay.
this. 2 weeks after she passed, and she died in our bedroom in our bed. And so it's dark and I just got to run and grab something off the bed because I'm late to go meet someone. I run in. Now the lights, we have these big floodlights in our ceiling, and I'm maybe about 15 feet away from the light switch, getting something off the bed. It's dark. All the lights go on. Boom. And now I feel her presence and I hear her in my head. Now, it's so weird when this happens because you feel like they're in the room with you, but they're not. It's just in your head. But and she was the greatest salesperson I've ever met. She's laughing like only she laughs. She's talking to me like only she talks to me. And she goes, "You're not going to believe this." but they've allowed me to stay here and to be your guide for the rest of your life. Okay. And I've never experienced anything more real,
Whoa.
but the light's going on when I'm 15 feet away from the thing. They say that when you first leave your body to make the transition, because we are electrical beings made of electrons, we have the ability to influence television, influence lights, influence electricity. So there you go. But now after these 3 experiences, I go to a medium in San Francisco. Now, nobody in the world knows this, okay? But since she's gone, when I drive my car, I put my elbow on the center console and I act as if I'm holding her hand. Nobody knows this, okay? And this guy's name was Felix. He goes, okay, Mike, Margot's here. And she wants you to know she loves it when you hold her hand in the car. Now, not one person, no one can know this unless a guy, and I'm not thinking about it, so he can't be reading my mind. So, and now there's about 20 other things that come up in this reading that only I know and only she knows. Fast forward 3 months ago, another dear friend of hers is in Sedona, Arizona, and texts me and says, Mike, I got to talk to you. I got to talk to you. I just did a reading. Margot came through, and she wants you to know she loves how you look at her now when you hold her hand, because ever since this guy told me she's there, now I'm looking, okay? She wants you to know she loves it when you look at her, when you're holding her hand driving the car.
And this is a different psychic medium.
Completely different. Sedona, Arizona, San Francisco, California, 2 different people. So the point of all this,
wow,
and I'm not making this shit up, and I'm not some crazy guy high on pot, okay? There's so much more going on here, ladies and gentlemen, than we could ever even imagine. So this is my, I want to tap into that. I've been doing a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations. I've been going to his things. I'm going to another one this Thursday, actually. And dude, when you realize that it's all energy, vibration, and frequency, and that the illusion, we're made of atoms. Atoms are 99% space. This solidity is the illusion. Okay. I really believe it's intention that's holding this together. It's intentions that's holding these gazillion, trillion atoms together to create this body that houses this soul of some guy named that the world calls Mike Murphy. We don't have a clue who this person is. Right. So I just find all this fascinating.
So then what do you think that, like, what's going on whenever it comes to like psychic mediums? Are they able to just like calm their own mind and their own body to tap into like this other frequency? Like, what's going on?
It's kind of like dogs. Think about dogs, right? They can hear things you and I can't hear. And I think there's humans like this. I think there's humans can see. We know that there's humans, we all have a light body or etheric body. And there's humans that can see these auras and see the colors that go with them. So we know that exists. I just think they're gifted people. I honestly believe that when we're born, we all have this. Okay. And depending on the environment that we're born into, okay, if our parents think we're nuts because we talk to our little secret friend that they can't see, okay, whatever it is. But I really, as a child, I had some of these gifts. And as a child, I knew certain things. And that's why for me to leave school in the 8th grade, I knew it was all bullshit, right? I just knew. I had this knowing. And so there's certain things that I don't have the gift to be able to communicate with someone that's passed to the other side. But I totally believe that there's right here. And right here, the Bible calls this ether. Nikola Tesla called it plasma. The Chinese call it chi. The Indians call it prana. But right here, it's all energy. It's energy vibrating at a certain frequency. And you're in Pittsburgh right now?
Yeah.
And I'm in Medellin, Colombia. I can send you a text message. You're going to get what's it traveling on? Okay. And I really believe before all this bullshit, whatever happened, we used to do this telepathically. Okay. And why is there pyramids on every freaking continent in the world, right? What was going on back then? So there's so many things that we don't understand. But Tesla really taught us a lot. And then they wouldn't allow him to teach us anymore. He really wanted to give us a lot, and they wouldn't allow us to give us. So
his problem was not being able to monetize it and turn it into money.
That wasn't his problem. He didn't want to monetize it. He wanted to give it away. That's
my point, is that he lost funding for it because he couldn't monetize giving people electricity for free. Yeah.
The difference was he had a heart to serve, and they had a heart for money.
The world just, I guess, wasn't ready for it yet, or I don't know. He just he needed to find a way to get more money coming in, or something.
Yeah.
But yeah,
well, they stole his stuff. They stole it. He should be the inventor of electricity. He was way far ahead of Edison.
Yeah, I mean,
They just,
there's
but he had a
probably a
pure
lot of
heart.
his
He was
there's a
pure.
lot of his inventions that I'm sure being used today that people
Oh
we
yeah,
have no idea
absolutely,
about. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, man, it's pretty crazy all this shit that yeah, goes
But
on in
but but
those
but but
respects.
but what so, I used to say, like, words like crazy, but now it's just interesting. Now it's just fascinating. Now it's just like, it's really, like, confusing. Why is it like that? That's what I spend my time thinking, okay, what is really going on? Why? And why am I here? And what can I do about it? That's really how because I went through a stage, man, where I mean, I used before this podcast, I used to have another podcast that got censored like crazy, right? Because I was angry. I was pissed. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, after my wife died in 2011, and I was her primary caretaker, so I had all this time on my hands, right? And I started really reading and really researching and really looking at the truth. And I go, oh my God, they killed Kennedy. They killed both Kennedys. They killed Martin Luther King. What about 9/11? What about this? What about Building 7? I go, holy shit, you guys, we got to create a revolution. And I turned around, there was no one behind me. And
Yeah.
said, okay, well, I think I'll find another country to live in.
Well, I think there's probably something to it, right? First of all, there's a lot to unpack in regards to all of those. But
Huh.
even deeper, I think there's something to be said for the fact that you were cultivating this podcast from anger and hate and
Yes.
rage. And so
Well, no,
it's
it wasn't anger and rage. It was really like you touched on it earlier. I wanted people to know the truth. And I was tired of people being so dumb and not opening their mind and trusting Rachel Maddow and trusting Sean Hannity when in reality they don't have your best interest at heart. They have a propaganda, they have an agenda that serves the people with the money. So that's really where I was coming from. I was angry that Americans don't give a shit about their country. I was angry that even my kids think, well, the money's always going to be here. America's the greatest country in the world, and we got nothing to worry about. That's what I was saying.
well, right. And I guess my point though was that you're angry, like the anger coming through that medium is like arguably it could be a good thing that it was getting censored because if we're just
Well,
allowing the anger to go through, it could just perpetuate more anger in the long run. So
yeah,
it could
but
be
no,
seen as
I
beneficial.
was getting censored because I was talking about real truth, and they were pushing a different narrative. That's where the censorship was
Yeah, I've had one or two podcasts on who
going.
have
Yeah,
gotten flagged for stuff like that.
yeah,
So
there
yeah,
you go.
it's interesting. You stop doing it if you
Well,
can't get the
right,
information out
exactly.
about
What are you
it.
supposed to do? So what I've learned is to talk in circles, right? On my own podcast. If I want to say something negative, I just phrase it in a way where no one can, what do the elites plausible deniability? I've always got plausible deniability.
Yeah, I guess that's right. I think there's also something to be said for just bringing it back to kind of those core tenets that we were talking about, whether it's meditation, whether it's, having a journal to write about affirmations, the way you want the world to look,
Yeah,
whether it's examining your own emotions, whether it's
yeah,
focusing on the energy that you want to cultivate, bringing it more to that interpersonal level,
absolutely.
which is interesting because I mean, it seems like a lot of this podcast, I mean, just this one in particular, but even just the way that I've been perceiving things or going about things is like, there's like almost like the individual and then there's these Goliath structures. And maybe it has something to do with the binary approach that we have or looking at the world, or maybe that I have, where it's like, okay, we need to reorganize the structures and then empower the individual. And it
I agree.
seems like if we're able to achieve one or two of those, or both of them ideally, like that would be almost the most beneficial thing that you could do, not only in your life but like in anybody's life as a whole.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Mike, I'm getting the internal ping that we've kind of just hit where we're trying to go with this podcast. We've gotten it all out there, so I'm super grateful you came on. I'm super grateful to have this time to talk to you. Do you have any closing remarks? I always leave a little space at the end for my guests. Any messages you want to leave the audience with? Anything you want to plug? I've got your links, so I'll throw them in the description below. So, with all that being said, the floor is yours.
I would just like to thank you for having me on. I know how much hard you work to do this, so I appreciate all your time and energy. So thank you for trying to make the world a better place with your work. I would like, I've already talked about move from the head to heart. I think if people could get back into their heart, they're going to be better served. I will mention this super exciting project that we're building here in Medellin, Colombia, called Mountains of Hope. It's a 16-day transformational health retreat. It's very affordable. And the first week is a physical detox. So we use these powerful enzymes to clean out your colon and your intestines. So the first day is a bit tough. The next 5 days we spend softening the stones in your liver and your gallbladder. And the sixth day we flush them all out. At the same time, we're giving you coffee enemas. We're giving you infrared saunas, massage, IVs of good nutrients and vitamins, ozone therapy. We have 2 hours of education every day. We have 2 hours of movement classes, whether it be yoga, breath work, meditation, what have you. We're building a gym, a spa, a convention center. We have golf, we have pickleball, we have jacuzzis, we have cold water plunges. Then the second week, when we anchor that first week with a sweat lodge ceremony, very sacred, very spiritual. The second week, we move into mushrooms, a lot of Joe Dispenza meditations, the work of Byron Katie, the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton. We study all that. We study from my book, The Creation Frequency, create powerful intentions that we can manifest what we truly desire. We get into ayahuasca, we get into yahe, and we anchor that week with a sweat lodge ceremony. So if you know someone that wants to heal themselves, if you know someone that's recent diagnosis of physical ailment that they feel that they can tackle themselves, or if you have somebody going through anxiety or depression or stuck in bad habits, or if you're just my age and your body's starting to create all these problems and you want to reboot, I really invite you to check out mountainsofhope.com. I don't believe there's any place like it in the world. Our first retreat is September 30th of this year. Which we're turning it into a 5-star experience. It's only a 3-hour flight from Miami. Once you land in Medellin, we pick you up. It's a 15-minute drive to our place. So I'd invite anybody to check that out. And the other beautiful thing is through our nonprofit foundation, the Love from Margot Foundation. It's Love from Margot, MARGOT.org. You can contribute to that. We take money from there and we give scholarships for people to come here, especially military veterans. 25 military vets in the U.S. every day commit suicide because of PTSD and other things. So we're very passionate about bringing them because they're having great results through ayahuasca, mushrooms, and healing the PTSD. So we bring at least one of those people to every retreat. If we have more money, that's what I pay for. If people donate, we have more
That's
money,
great.
we bring more people. And if you want to know more about me, my website is MikeMurphyUnfiltered.com, and we'd love to have you follow us.
And I think I read that you're a veteran too. Is that right?
No, no,
Oh,
I'm
you're not a veteran. Okay, you just
not.
work with veterans. Okay, then I read
Yes.
that wrong. Okay, cool. No, but that's a super great thing that you do, and again, super dope. You're giving back to the community like that. I know talking about disenfranchised groups that we've been sectioned off into,
Oh,
veterans. It's almost it's kind of crazy that that's
it's
even considered
heartbreaking.
one as well. Yeah. But that's definitely a conversation for another time. Mike, thank you so much for being here. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you enjoyed it, please, please, please share this with someone else because it's a 4-way win whenever we do something like that. I win because this podcast gets out to more people. Mike wins because his message gets out to more people. You win because now your friend knows that you listen to a dope podcast, and your friend wins because they listen to a dope podcast. So in a conversation that's all about creating win-win situations, we just created a win-win-win-win situation. So thank you guys for listening, and Conscious Monkeys, as always, I will see you in the 6th dimension.